Off on the top. Okay. HaMitzvah Hashesh Ushloshim. 36. Hishetzivonu sheyihiyeh. Okay. Or sheyihiyu is the Metibin and Kapach. And the interesting thing is the Tirgum of Ibn Eov is Lihiyos. And this becomes very important. I don't know if I mentioned, I assume I mentioned to you last week that the bikon is a very interesting word, which the Rambam uses very sparingly. It's an Arabic word. And the Rambam uses it a few times in Sefer Mitzvas. And the literal translation of the word means to be in the state of, okay? And he uses it in the midst of Tmura, which is very interesting. See, we always like, what's the Tmura is allowed in the Aseh. So, what's the Aseh? Is that the Tmura should be in the state of Kedusha. And that's Yehiyeh. It's just that should be in the state of something, okay? And you have another one that is the mitzvah of Neter Avoy, the Kedusha. It says that to Yeh Kodesh. What do Yeh Kodesh? What does it mean? It means that it should be in the situation. You should act. It as far as you see it, it should be Kodesh. You find it also in Mitzvah Reish Aleph, Achilas Sochia. Okay, that's good. Then there's one which we don't know what it means, by Chalitza. We don't know what it means, Chalitza. I once discussed something, it's a little bit far-fetched, whatever. Okay, what does it be? And the Tzara Shova in Minyan HaKotzer, by all of these, the Ram says lihiyos. Okay, it's a infinitive. It's to be in the state. It's not to do something else. So here, the important thing is that what the Ram is saying is that there should be an institution of mishmaros, and there's no ma'aser mitzvah. It should be. It should continue to exist. I'm not getting involved, whatever, whatever it is, but there should be this, whatever it is, there should be a state of mishmaros. Okay. Okay. I'm not getting involved. The Ram just changed his list in Mishnah Torah, and he seems to put that Chosan Shana Rishona is liyos, and he takes Poil out of it, and it's not a liyos. But that's not, neither here nor there for us now. But this mitzvah is liyos or yihiyu. Okay, it's that there should be a state bikon. There should be a state of that the kohanim oivdim lemishmaros. And that's the mitzvah. It's Amar. It's not a din. The Ram says Amar is a bona fide tzivuy. But it's Amar of Bikon that the tzivuy should be a certain state. Okay? And not necessarily do something, but a certain state should exist. Okay? Here, the next step is, if you read the Rambam, Shiur HaKohanim Oivdim LeMishmoros Tavoid Mishmeres B'chol Shavua, and The Ram is telling you that the length of a mishmah is a week. And we'll see that might be a d'oraisa dikadin. The Ramban doesn't seem to think there's any particular length about it, but the Rambam says, Mishmeres b'chol shavua. We'll decide where it comes from. We'll see unkelis, whatever. Okay? Like that. V'lo tiyeh yad hakol misasekes yachad ele b'golim. And the equivalency that everyone's the same is only in a yontif regel. Not even Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, it's regel. Okay? Ele b'gol levad. Sheyavdu oz hamishmoros kulam b'shova. This is a little odd. I'm not going to talk about this at all today, but I would have said that every kohen is the same, okay? But he says mishmoros shavos, okay? So it means there is an institution of mishmoros on regel, but in certain circumstances, all the mishmoros are equivalent. B'chol misha bo makriv ukvar nisboye ze b'divrei hayomim. What does it mean? Kvar nisboye ze b'divrei hayomim. What's divrei hayomim? Al Chabdal wasn't doing anything. I thought Divrei Yomim was a historical chronicle. What are we trying to yizboye zeh? Van yizboye zeh. This zeh is both in even tibin, even iyoi, but in kapach it's kvan yizboye b'divrei Yomim. Okay, but he's saying it's Chilkom David Ushmuel. V'somo Eisom Arbo'o V'yesre Mishmo. Therefore, what? V'izboye b'sukkah שברגולים יד כולם שווה. ולושן מצווה זו, אמרוי, וחיובוי הלוי וכולי, ובו בכל אהבת נפשי, אל המוקרים, אשר יבחר הוויה, ושייס בשם השם אלוקיו. ככל אחד הלוויים, העומדים שם, לפני השם. Inside, okay, just to test you on what does it mean? Comes Targum Unkus and says, but slow. It's a very interesting thing. What does it mean? Is a separate Indian of Tefillah in Mikdash? We know about Neicha Mikdash, the Rambam in Mitzvah seems to say is an Indian is boy v'neichasai. There's a separate Indian Tefillah in Mikdash, and this is going on here. Targum, but Kohanim, b'kol echov haLevim or imdim shom l'shores, oim l'shon of Nei Hashem, oim l'shon of Nei Hashem. What is it? Who's Levim? Who's standing here? What's going on? We're talking about Achilles Kohanim here, certainly. Sefri, bi'achad sherecha, b'shor sheYisrael mechunosim sham, mechunosim b'shar echad b'shlosh regolim. You see, this Sefri is talking about an irregular one shava. But the Rambam, L'chatchila, really has two parts to this mitzvah. There's a mitzvah that there should be an institution called Mishmoros, and that institution should on regular Mishmoros HaShavos. Okay, so on regular called Mishmoros HaShavos, that we know from the Sefer in Shoftim. But how do we know that it's an institution of Mishmoros and that it's a mitzvah? We know the Ram has told us, but something's missing. He's told us that Shmuel and David and Shmuel made 24 Mishmoros. But what is that? A historical recording of a takana? If that's the case, it doesn't do with the mitzvah. So l'cheira, it's telling you about the mitzvah. But it's telling you, how do we know that? Where does the Ram see that? Well, look at the pasuk. V'chyovo halevi v'chulei yovo v'chol avas nafshay el hamokim asher yivcha Hashem. This el hamokim asher yivcha Hashem is in some kisiyat, some not. Maybe just a v'chulei v'goymer v'sheis b'shem Hashem elokov. Kol echov halevim or in the shows lifnei Hashem chelik chelik yochelu. So what do you see over here? Is there any tzibur over here? The Torah is telling his story. B'chiyov Alevi, he happens to come, and these are his dinim. Is it din to make mishmoros? The B'chol Avos Nafsho is telling you that even though there are mishmoros, in a certain case, in Legolim, is chelik chelik yochelu. But what's the raya that there's a mitzvah over here? In fact, the Ramban says that the mitzvah is only the second half, that the kol ha'golim should be shabbos. I mean, kol ha'mishmoros should be shabbos b'regel. But to make mishmoros, there's no mitzvah mina mitzvahs. In fact, the Ramban says that the Rambam Mishnah Torah changed his mind and agrees with him, and it's only the mitzvah mishmoros is only that it should be shabbos regel. There's no mitzvah to make mishmoros. That's what he claims. And l'cheira, there's a diuk like that because the Rambam in Perek Dalet of Hilchos Klan Mikdash Mo'ivne Boy, he says in halacha, I think it's halacha Beis Gimel, he says the takana of Mishmoros, that Shmuel Nob was Mesakin. Shmuel Aroyim, Moshe Rabbeinu, 8 Mishmoros. How many? 24 Mishmoros, whatever. And then he says, Mitzvas say, Leo is called Mishmoros Shabbos. So it means before it's not a mitzvah, and afterwards that's the Ramban's deal. So it's difficult to say that he's quoting the pasuk as a raya to anything, because in the pasuk you don't see anything. So here's like this. Like this. So in the psukim there's nothing, and the pashtus akoy is there's no tzibur lasas mishmoros, but the mitzvah is that you should let the kohen who comes to be oved, it comes to the mikdash, he should be able to be oved b'chol avas nafshay. And l'cheira, the b'chol avas nafshay is when there's no stiyut to mishmoros. And comes the, and you could have said it's any time, okay? And comes the Sifri, and according to Ram Zakapiyush Makubal, that the Makad Makom always is in Regel, where it's Sha'echod, whatever, then everyone is the same. But here, the Ram is not like that. That's the way he's a Mishnah Torah, and that's the whole mitzvah. But here he seems to say, no, that the Chiluk of Mishmos is also part of the mitzvah. So, l'chera, the Rambam, the fakir, the Raya is, ukvan is boye, ze, b'divrei hayomim, ei chilkum David u'Shmuel, v'samu eisam arboim v'eschrin mishmo. And it's referring to the whole parsha in Divrei Yomim, including the following pasuk. Eile pikudosam la'avoidosam lovo lebeis Hashem kimishpotam bi'ar Aaron avihem. Till that point, we have nothing. And then it continues in Divrei Yomim over there, Divrei Yomim Aleph Chav Daled, pasuk Yutes, Kashet Sivo Havaya Elokei Yisrael. What does it mean, Kashet Sivo Havaya Elokei Yisrael? You see from this that the Novi or the Ruach HaKodesh, whatever you want, Divrei Yomim, is recording that that's the pshat in the Torah, that there's a tzivui, a pirush makubal, that even though a priori in pshuto shel mikra you would interpret that the words levad mikol always, that it's only a telling you when the kohanim are all can do, everyone is over the same. Becomes the Pirush Makubal and says, no, Levad is not stam that they happen to do it. There's a mitzvah to be machalik l'mishmaros. And that's the Bikon. One could have gone further and said that since the Torah has no verb b'chlal, nothing's going on over here, and all it says in Divrei Yomim is that there's a tzivui, and comes the Rambam, maybe you should include from that as much as the Pirush Makubal, and there is a mitzvah, but there's no meister, there's no thing, there's something you have to do. There just should be this thing should exist. Levad Makov always, as it's formulated in the Torah, that there should be such an institution. So normally you would have said that this institution is mafkia a schus kohen, and the answer is no. Siva Hashem is Moshe, that there should be this institution. Maybe that's what's going on according to the Rambam. And that we pointed out last time, probably again, that we find in other cases where there's a stira between Pshuto Shel Mikra and the Pirush Makubal, both exist. Like in Mizbach Adom Taseli, the Ram says in Mitzvah Chof that it means a harashah heter to make a mizbeach b'smas heter abomis, and there's a mitzvah, a pirush makubal, that l'doros the mizbeach should be mekubal l'karka. Now, the last part here is amazing, is also interesting, Because the Rambam makes use of this twice. And he says it foolish in the place where only says the remes. Here, he alludes to it just by quoting the Divrei Yom, and everyone knows Divrei Yom. So it's in the mitzvah of Nesias Ha'oren. And listen to this. Ram Nesias Ha'oren says that we know that Nesias Ha'oren, L'deris, is b'kohanim and not Leviim. From this pasuk, Kasher Tziva Hashem es Moshe, Kasher Tziva Tzivo Havaya Elkei Yisrael. And the reason why he says it's a remes, because the Pshuto Shamikra, this in Divrei Yomim is referring to Mishmoris. But it's only a remes for the Siyas Ha'oren for Kohanim. That's what he writes. V'chein kishezochar b'divrei hayomim chalukos hakohanim li-esrim v'arbo mishmoros v'oma achazeh eile prudosam la'avoidosam lovoi beis Hashem k'mishpotam b'yad Aaron avim kashetzivo havai elkei Yisrael. So see, the truth is, since Roimes, Lios, Avoidus HaKohanim, Loses Es Ha'oren, Alakotev, Vizehu Kashet Tzivo, Hashem Elokei Yisrael. So I'm not sure, maybe, since this is the mitzvah of the Nesias Ha'oren, Lamed Daled, and here with Lamed Vav, it's already mentioned. So the Ram doesn't go over, he just mentioned Divrei Yomim. But the Pshuto Shamikra is referring to Mishmoros. And you could have a remes to another mitzvah that the Deiros, Nesias Ha'oren, is Kohan. Now, we finish this. Now the question is, what is the Ram's opinion in Mishnah Torah? We pointed out the Ramban, but I want to show you that the Briskerov and Minchas Chinuch, Briskerov don't seem to interpret the Ram like the Ramban. Let's see it now. We said that the Ramban says that the mitzvah l'deiros in Mishnah Torah is only that everyone is equal on regular. There's no mitzvah to make mishmoros. The raya is the raya, is number one, that a priori, there's no tzivu in the Torah. The Torah is telling a story. You can say v'sheres is kilu that a tzivui that everyone should work equally, but to make mishmoros, there's no tzivui in the Torah. And moreover, that I don't know how great that is. The is standing. The Rambam quotes Chiluk Mishmoros in Hilchos Klei HaMikdash V'Ivnim Boi before he quotes the mitzvah. In that he quotes in Halacha Gimel, and Halacha Daled he quotes the mitzvah. And then he says, he quotes a historical fact that Moshe Rabbeinu, when David and Shlomo were machal the Kohen of the Mishmoros, and then he says in Halacha Daled, Mitzvas Aseh, shel kol kohen yochel avoid beregel. So the Chayyim should conclude from this that the mitzvah is not the chiluk mishmoros. The mitzvah is that everyone is equal on the regel. Exactly what the Ramban said. One could add to that the lashon, the historical the story in Perek Daled is very similar to the story it tells us about Levim in Perek Gimel. And the rule of thumb is when there's parallel Lashonos, you assume it's the same. And by Levim, certainly according to the Rambam, it's only a takana by Levim. So by Kohanim, it's the same. Biskarava Torah and the Biskarava Torah is the same pashas by Midbar. The Minchas Chinuch in Mitzvah Tov Kuf Tes. They seem to assume that Ram and Mishnah Torah also has a mitzvah l'chalek kohan and the mishmaros. See, here you can flip it, okay? Why does the Rambam formulate in Hilchos Klei HaMikdash V'Oivdim Boy in Perek Daled Daled? He says, Mitzvas Aseh liyos kol mishmaros shavim b'regolim. If mishmaros is not a chelik of the mitzvah, what does it mean that there should be mishmaros shavos? It should have been kol kohanim oivdim b'shaveh. Who says there were mishmaros or had to be mishmaros? So it should have been a mitzvah say liyos kol kohanim shavim b'regolim. So one can conclude from that maybe, and that's I guess the Bisklov and the Minchas Chinuch, that the Aseh is mechayim mishmoros. And after you have mishmoros, as I say, to make mishmoros, on regel kol mishmoros Shabbos. And also, there's another mashmos in Halacha Daled, in Perek Daled Halacha Daled of the HaMitzvos V'Oivdim Boy. V'ein oimrim loi lech ad sheyagia mishmocha. When ein oimrim loi, what's my mishmocha? Because the mitzvah is based on the postulate or on the mitzias that there was a chiluk mishmaros in Perek Daled Halacha Daled kol kohen she'ovoid golem v'rotza la'avoid oived v'chelik imoyim ve'ein oimim loy leich ad sheyagia mishmocha shenemar chiyov alevi me'achad shech. What do you mean ve'ein oimim loy? What are we talking about? So it means that there are mishmaros. Yeah, but then that's the case, why the Rambam formulating such an odd way that, why did he make the takomi for what did he want? So I think the way you have to understand them is the following. There's a double poshit. According to the Ram Mishnah Torah, making mishmoros, there's no kiyum mitzvah. In Sefer Mitzvas, there is a kiyum. That's as we said, that Amar, every time there's a tzivui, the Ram says, it's an Amar. There's a bona fide tzivui. It's not a shrana, it's not a hira. There's a tzivui. However, Mishnah Torah, there's no tzivui. There's no kiyum. But it's a din of the Torah that's what it should be. Levai b'makom ha'avos. That there's such an institution, and it should be, but there's no kiyum, there's no amar. The Torah says that's what it should be. So it's almost like a din in the pasuk. That's why the Rambam doesn't, when Mitzvas say, because the Rambam Mishneh Torah, I think, is Neked Haklol B'Yodech. That the Rambam Mishneh Torah, when he's talking about Shrana, doesn't use the Lashon Mitzvas Aseh. In Mishneh Torah, it counts it. Din Tumas Nevelis, Din Tumas Mes, Din Tumas Sheretz. The Rambam doesn't say Mitzvah Aseh of Tumas Sheretz in Mishneh Torah. It's only Sefer Mitzvah where he's counting it. So therefore, when he says Mitzvah Aseh, he limits it to the Tzivui Muchot of a Sheres, that everyone's equal. And still there's a Shana, there is a din that everyone should be equal. Excuse me, the din that there should be Chofdal Mishmoros, or it's not Chofdal, there should be Mishmoros l'Shabbosos. How you do it? How many you have? Moshe had his, and Shmuel and David had theirs, but there should be Chiluk Mishmoros. Now, the one could come, but I think it's a mistake, and say maybe the Rambam has changed his mind for a whole different reason. That Mishmoros are like Sheres Yud, that it's like a Hakdama. The mitzvah is that all Mishmoros Shabbos, but Mishmoros is a Hakdama to the mitzvah. And the Ram counts the mitzvah in Mishnah Torah. The Mishnah is not the Hakdama. The Mishnah is the mitzvah is the fact that everyone's equal on the regel. Just want to say one thing, that basically when you in Sheres Yud, you have a seder of mitzvahs. You have a tzitzivuyim. You have in in Lechem Aponim, there's lakachta, v'afisa, and the siddur, and v'chui. So you have a conglomerate, one tzivui after another tzivui, and a whole seder, and the other's akdoma, the mitzvah is really the siddur. That's what the Ram says. But over here, it's not that you have a seder of tzivuyim, it's a postulate upon which the mitzvah is based. Since there are mishmaros, it's not a hakdama to the mitzvah. The levad mikol ha'avos, that since there are mishmaros, or when there are mishmaros, or having mishmaros, is a pashut that the whole mitzvah of regel shava only expresses itself in mishmor shavos. So you must have mishmor, you must have a mishmor in order to have mishmor shavos on the regel. Now, I mentioned this also last week, and here's an amazing thing. The Rambam in Perek Dalet of Hilchos Klei HaMikdash tells us that there's a chiluk in Botei Avos, that we don't only have a chiluk of mishmaros, but you machalik Botei Avos. That's it. Halach Yud Aleph in Perek Dalet. Kol Reish Mishma uMishma Machalek Mishmoroi Lebotei Avos Ad Sheyeh Kol Beis Av VaAnoshov Oved Biyoim Echad Bimois HaShabbos. One day they get VaAcher Biyoim Shel Achrav. VaAcher Biyoim Shel Achrav. V'chol Beis Av v'Av Reish Echad Memuna Olav. So comes the Briskerov. It has a line. If you look at his Pirush Chumash, he says it. I was amazed. A priori, when you read the Rambam, and the fact that he has halachas, maybe we'll talk about them later, about Tomei and Balmum and a person's zokin that he can't be oved, and how you machalek and whatever. And then he talks about Botei Avos. So I would have said Botei Avos is an administrative conclusion that they decide to divide the mishmar up into different parts. Okay, but no way in no way there's a in no way there's a it has anything to do with the pasuk levad mim kol avos. And the question is such a thing? Is there such a thing possible? So Briskerov does an amazing thing. He does an amazing thing. He says that the Levad, he talks about Mishmaros, and he talks about Botei Avos, and he says Levad Mim Kol Avos, which is amazing. So he means that the Levad Mim Kol Avos is also the same thing. Dahainu, that that the same way there's a mitzvah of mishmaros, there's a mitzvah to machalek in the Botei Avos. It's an amazing thing. But if you look at it, that's what he seems to say. And we'll talk about this in Mitzvah Hashem. The problem is like this. Let's see that was saying. You see, First of all, if the whole source that there's a mitzvah, the Pirush Mekubal, is only in Divrei Yomim, one would say that the litmus test over here of whether there's a mitzvah of Botei Avos or not should depend upon whether Botei Avos are mentioned in Divrei Yomim or not. And the answer is they're not. So, to say Levad Mekubal Avos is also Botei Avos is an amazing thing then. That's one. Two, the Rav Mishnah Torah rings Chaluk Mishmoros et HaKodesh Shmuel v'David. And we discussed whether maybe it's a mitzvah or not. It's because the mitzvah is based on Mishmoros. But the Chiluk of Botei Avos, he says it wasn't done al yidei David and Shmuel. It's done on the Rosh Beis Av. So it's a seder. It is how the works, the administrative apparatus in Mikdash. Now, something else. The Rambam in Hilchos Klei Mikdash Bo'ivnim Boy in Perek Dal Halacha Ches, Hoya Kohen Baal HaKorban, the Kohen who's the Baal HaKorban, he's the Baal Mum, Noisin Korbono Li'anchi Mishmo V'or Shelahem. So, since the Schuyas and Avodah and Chalukah are to the base Av, as we'll see, so why can the Kohen Baal Mum give it to the Anshe Mishmo? And everyone, and the Anshe Mishmo Shelahem? Why does it go to the Anshe Mishmo? And there is a din, a schus, chalukah to the base Av, and that is a dereisne dike din. The Ram quotes it in Perek Yud of Hilchos Ma'aseh Karbonos Halacha Yud Dalet, and let me just show it to you. And it's based on a Teres Kohanim, and the base Av is called Klein Hamakriv. Here it is. Avolin Chaluka Perek Yud Halacha Yud Dalet in Ma'aseh Karbonos Avolin Chaluka Akol Yanshe Beis Av Shemakriv Beis Hayoim V'Kulam Cholkin B'Chol Kodshei HaMikdash Ish Kiochiv Bein Zeh Shehikriv Bein Achiv She'imoi B'Mikdash or Echov She'imoi B'Mikdash Shaloi Hikriv, because it's called Klein HaMakriv. That is the Teres Kohanim. That's what I'm expressing. So what happened if really after everything's said and done, the Chaluk is really not Mishmoros, it's a base Av, we have no idea what happened. Because the whole idea of Mishmor shouldn't make any sense. It really is base Av. And the whole idea of Chiluk, Lezayin, where there's a Mishmor, also we don't know what's going on. Each kohen has a schus to be makriv korbonoi be'atzmoi. And this is also learned from B'chol Avas Nafshay. Even though he's not from the base Av, he's not from the Mishmor. That's the Rambam here in Perek Daled, v'chus klei hamikdash v'oivnei bo halacha zayin. The schus balmum that can't be makriv is to give the korban l'chol klein shoimi lahakriv, and that's the kohen and Mishmor. And the schus is not limited to the base Av. So it's not the same thing. And that's why the Rambam quotes, if you look now clearly in Perek Daled v'hilchos klei hamikdash v'oivnei bo, the Rambam quotes all these halachas before he quotes base Av. And that's why, because all these halachas are explaining how the din of B'chol Avas Nafshay intertwines the din Mishmaros. But it has nothing to do with the din of base Av. And that he quotes later. That's what the Rambam has. All this is here. It's in the Mitzvas, he talks about regel, lechem aponim, and other korbanos, whatever. Halacha zayin, that a kohen, any kohen that wants to come and do avodah on his own korban can do it. Then he talks how does he, of the schus akrova that a kohen has, how does it express in balmum, in zikah, in chayla, whatever you want. And after everything said, he said, Rabbi Isai, there happens to be an administrative thing in Halacha Yud Aleph called Reish Mishmo, Umishmo, Mechalek Mishmo Lebotei Avos, Ad Shiyeh Kol Beis Av, V'Anoshav Oived B'Yoim Echad, B'Mois HaShabbos, V'Acher B'Yoim Achrov, V'Acher B'Yoim Achrov. Right? So that's something else. So I would have said that this has nothing to do with Levad Mimekol Avos. There's no mech over here. There's no thing. It's the way they set it up. Biskulov, in just an aside, you never would have noticed it, but look at it now, you'll see. In Bamidbar, he has the line. He says, Levad Mimekol Avos, he refers both to Mishmos and Boteav. If you wouldn't have been bought by the problem, you probably never would have noticed it. Next. Now, however, so I just want to tell you what's the pshat in all this. A kohen, the schus balmum she'enu yochol akriv is to give the korban l'chol kohen she'omer lahakriv she'en kohen mishmo. But the schus has nothing to do with the base Av, as we said, and this is a din deraisa. Once they're machalik is a din deraisa that they are the makriv, but it's nothing to do with the schus kohen who he can give the korban over to. A kohen sheni yochol avoid also, who is sokin chayil, can also give it to the mishmo, but nothing to do with the base Av. However, Mr. Zalman, in Hilchos Klei HaMikdash v'oivnei bo in Perek Daled, says that the Rambam, when he says the korban balmum is neat in the base Av, v'lo li'anshei mishmo. So the Chayyid Biskulov should also say like that. But it's very odd that the Rambam should quote only the din of base Av only afterwards. Because it's Nageya. If the din Tomei or the Balmor or in Zoki B'chayla is also in Botei Av. He should have quoted Botei Av, and that's part of the din of Vamikol Office, and then quote the din of Balmum and Tomei and Chayla. That's what I would have said. Okay, next. Now, next thing that I'm going to do, and I doubt they're going to finish this week, okay, is there's a long Ramban here in Hasagas, and I'm not going to wade through it reading it. I'm just going to make points, and we'll see how far we get. And next week, Hashem, we kind of pick it up and just go further in terms of the Ramban. The first approaching Ramban is Mishmoros Takonos and Levim. And L'chayv, Takonos Levim, it's like any Takona. It's only the Rabbanon. And therefore, Asiyas Mishmoros is not a mitzvah min aminyan. According to the Ramban, it was a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. That the mitzvah d'Rabbanan to make mishmoros is in order that there should be a zman kavua, that the kohen should know I'm being oved this week and another 24 weeks afterwards, and he can plan his life, and all other times he is he can deal with his household, deal with his panosa, or deal whatever he has to deal with. And by doing this, we bechizuk for avodas hakohanim that they mizdares lagi to come to the mikdash la'avoid without any atzlus when it comes to their mishmar. It was a way to set up everyone to have their life organized, to know this is the time that they're giving time, and but it's only Takonot Rabbanon. That's the Ramban, the first shot. The Takona is based on the pasuk the Bad Mekora always. There is a Chaloshem Midaraisa, even according to Ramban of Mishmaros. But the fact that they utilize this right to make it is happened to be a takona d'Rabbanan. So we have to understand how this works. The Kohanim should by themselves make a deal. And on the other hand, we find it was the Kohanim Levim. It was Moshe Rabbeinu, Shmuel, and David. And the Kohanim didn't make any deal. So a priori, what I would have said is almost sounds like it was Hefke Bez and Hefke. But however, it's not Stam Hefke Bez and Hefke. It's Lekichas Momoin Sheshayich Luvuvein, and to take it to Shimon. And it's everyone knows all these Shiva Shareit. It depends on the Rashban Gittin. Allah Mivovim Beis to Ramas Rav Omar. That Hefke Bez and Hefke can be from one to another. Not because Hefke Bez and just means to mafkid. And how it gets to the other person, he has to be Zeicha. And what the Nevi'im do will machriach the Kohanim that this is the Seder. And according to this approach, the only mitzvah that's a deraisa that we count me in our mitzvahs is that the Kohen could be oved in Beis HaMikdash whenever he wants, except for when they happen to be nifgal always. And he also has a chelik in korbanos whenever he's there and comes. Chelik is chelik yochelu. Talking about achilas korbanos. Levitim korbanos. So everyone's equal in achila. The Rambam a second. And according to this, according to the Rambam Mishnah also holds like this in Perek Dal Halacha Dalet. But the difference is, according to the Ramban, there's no set time. And the Sifri is only an asmachta ba'almo, that they happen to, that's regel, pshar echor, whatever it is. According to the Rambam, that regel, everyone's equal, is a deraisa. And according to the Ramban, there's a mitzvah that wherever there's no mishmah, then everyone's equal. Whenever they're not mechalikim, b'vad mikol ha'avos. So once you say that mishmor is a takona, the same takona for kohanim was also Leviim. And the Ramban brings a riot that there's no mitzvah to machalik from the fact he quotes a Sept in Tainis Perek Beis Halacha Beis that there were certain kohanim that they weren't part of any chiluk, and it was a mitzvah you couldn't have such a thing. It's a mitzvah mechalik mishmoris. You have to do everyone. Mitzvah. So Mitzvah we'll pick up next week. Derech Hasheni, the other approach to Ramban, and this is the first approach. Okay. Hatzlacha.